moral clarity. I'm such a fan of it. I love moral clarity, and even more, I love moral certitude. I love looking at an issue and seeing clearly that this is right and this is wrong. This is good and this is bad. And it's not just that it feels good, though it does. Moral clarity, and even more, moral certitude, is strengthening. It's empowering. Clarity of purpose lends endurance. When we are working toward a cause that we know will be a long time coming. I love moral clarity and moral certitude. But I have learned that there is a danger that comes along with that clarity. Its very strength and power can begin to be addictive. We not only assume that there is moral clarity around every issue, but we need there to be clarity around every issue. We need it. Nuance can begin to feel like a weakness. Naming complexity can begin to sound, even to our own ears, like we are speaking mere platitudes. I suspect that this addiction to clarity and certitude is one of the reasons our national discourse has devolved the way it has into a national shouting match. Politicians don't want to appear weak. It doesn't get them elected. And we just want someone to listen to us when we speak. But we are flooded with words, all of us. We are flooded with words all the time, everywhere. The headlines are screaming. The news feeds are rolling. The talking heads are talking. The TVs don't turn off at midnight anymore. There's so little time to absorb all of these words. There's so little time to reflect and to sort. And so we have learned that if we want to be heard over the din of all of those words, if we want our words to be the ones that sink in, then we must shout. And if we are going to shout, it's best to be clear about what we are shouting about. It's best to have clarity around our position, to be certain that we are right when we raise our voices. And so we shout at each other and past each other. And then we wonder why nothing changes. I have begun to believe that one of the great dangers that faces us as a society is that we have forgotten how to speak. Not all of us, and probably not any of us all the time, but enough of us. Enough of us, enough of the time. We have forgotten how to speak. We have forgotten what it means to speak to one another. In our desire to shout loud enough that we are heard. Consider these words by Episcopalian priest Barbara Brown Taylor. She writes, "How shall I break the silence? What word is more eloquent than the silence itself? In the moments before a word is spoken, anything is possible. The empty air is formless void, waiting to be addressed. Depending on what is said, earth could be all ocean, a blue water world in space. Adam could be a self-regenerating monk who sleeps alone by the glow of 2 moons or 3 and has to make his own decision about the fruit of that one beguiling tree. Anything is possible until God exhales inspiring the void first with wind and then with the word, which is both utterance and act, which makes something out of nothing by saying that it is so. In this church, we often talk about the fact that the holy exists within each of us, which means that it is not an external deity who creates with his word. It is each of us. It is each of us who creates something out of nothing when we speak. We are creating. Our speaking is creating, whether or not anyone is listening. But when we shout past one another, what we are creating is a world that does not know how to navigate itself. And there is an added layer to our forgetting how to speak to one another, and that is that first and last, we have forgotten how to listen. You all heard the cliche, I'm sure, that we do not listen to hear, we listen to reply. Well, it may be a cliche, but it is often true. We shout because no one is listening. We do not listen because we are all shouting. There's a short piece by the poet Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, he writes, there is a field. I'll meet you there. That passage used to irritate me. Oh, it's everywhere, especially in beauty circles. Out beyond ideas of right-doing and wrongdoing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. It was just gross to me. Because what I wanted was moral clarity and moral certitude. A field beyond right-doing and wrongdoing. It sounded like a platitude to me. Come on, let's all get along. Let's go out to the field. But as I have been sitting with all of this, I have begun to understand what he is saying. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And then he goes on, when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other. It doesn't make any sense. When we are reified in our positions, when we are sure that we are right, that often means that we are equally sure that you are wrong. And if we are sure that you are wrong, there is no need to listen to anything you have to say. But what if we were able to set aside our certainty? Set aside our certainty about who is right and who is wrong, and instead simply listen to one another. Let me read to you again the words from Marge Piercy that we heard as our call to worship. She writes, we must sit down and reason together. Perhaps we should sit in the dark. In the dark, we could utter our feelings. In the dark, we could propose and describe and suggest. In the dark, we could not see who speaks, and only the words would say what they say. No one would speak more than twice. No one would speak less than once. Thus, saying what we feel and what we want, what we fear for ourselves and each other into the dark, perhaps we could begin to listen. It seems to me that Rumi and Marge Piercy are essentially saying the same things. Not just set aside our ideas of right and wrong, but set aside the identities of the people that we attach to those notions. Set aside the idea that there are entire groups that are not worth listening to. Sit in the dark, where we have no idea who is speaking, and instead listen to the words themselves as they arise out of the silence. Listen to the words themselves as they pour forth out of the heart and the spirit. Listen to the words arising as they express our deepest fears, our greatest hopes. If we do not know who is speaking, we cannot be sure beforehand that they are wrong and therefore are not worth listening to. Perhaps then we would listen. It's not altogether realistic for all of us to sit in rooms with the lights off, however. But I suspect that there are ways we can train our hearts and our spirits and our minds to act as if we were in the dark together. To act as if just perhaps everyone had something worth listening to. I wonder what it would mean for us if we remembered how to listen without judging beforehand. I wonder what it would mean for us if we remembered how to speak rooted in the assumption that someone would listen to us. That our words, the act of speaking, was also an act of creation, and therefore it mattered what we spoke because it mattered what we created. I wonder what it would mean for us if we chose to, at least in our hearts and minds, venture out into that holy field where we are all holy beings, speaking holy words, creating the holy world around us. I wonder what it would mean. And I hope that we will discover it together. Amen.